The International Booker Prize has just announced their long list for the year. Let's have a look at the books and the authors and see what might appeal to us. Boulder by Eva Baltasar, translated by Julia Sanchez from Catalan. It's nice to see a Catalan book. What is it with the judges? This is the second book in the series. Why do book prizes do that? But this one doesn't appear to require you to read the first book. Two women fall in love aboard a ship and they move to Reykjavik together to start a family. Who wouldn't like to move to Reykjavik together? That sounds like an awesome city. As Samsa's pregnancy progresses, she becomes a stranger to Boulder. This book is sort of exploring the ideas of love and freedom and relationships and motherhood, and it's nice to have an LGBT novel on a prize list. A woman's prize. Whale by Chong Myung Kwong is translated by Chi Young Kim from the Korean. This is a multi-generational magical realism novel set in a small South Korean village. A girl gets sold to a beekeeper who controls bees with a whistle. Another character can talk to elephants. Somebody is mute. And somebody is chasing that feeling of seeing the first whale crest in the ocean. This sounds like an excellent book for fans of Gabriel Garcia Marquez and fans of magical realism in general. The Gospel According to the New World by Marzi Kondi is translated by Richard Philcox from the French. Pascal may be the son of God and is growing up in Guadalupe. I guess hence the title. Veteran author Condi is exploring family belief, faith, folklore, and the legacy left behind by slavery and colonialism in the Caribbean. This one sounds good, doesn't it? Standing Heavy by Girls is translated by Frank Wayne from the French. It's a debut novel about two generations of undocumented Côte d'Ivoire security guards working in a Paris flour mill. It's described as often funny but also poignant, and it's a look at security guards but also the changing shape of French immigration laws, identity, migration, and the impact of colonialism on the post-colonial world. Are we post-colonial yet? I guess that might be one of the things the book is exploring. Time Shelter by Gregory Gospodinov, translated by Angela Rodels from the Bulgarian. Patients who are suffering with Alzheimer's can go to this clinic from the past. Each floor of this clinic is dedicated to a different decade with different aesthetics and foods and so on. But soon tourists want to visit and travel to the 80s. I guess this book must be exploring this idea of nostalgia and the ever-changing world and what we long for. Is Mother Dead by Virgis Hoff is translated by Charlotte Barnsland from the Norwegian. A controversial artist returns home and her art is often about motherhood, which causes some friction between her and her mother when they're reunited after 2 years of not speaking. I feel like the title of this book is a play on the concept of death of the author. Is Mother Dead? And it sounds a bit inspired by Hoth's own life, as she's had an argument with her family over her last novel. I think the best title on the long list goes to Jimi Hendrix Live in Lviv by Andrei Kurkov, translated by Rubens Woolies from the Russian. This is a Ukrainian author, and you can almost guess that a Ukrainian was going to be on this long list after what has happened in the previous 12 months. But this book doesn't sound like a token inclusion at all. Darkly comic, a surreal mystery about Victor, who discovers footage of Jimi Hendrix performing in Lviv and is convinced he can track down the original footage. At some point he meets a man who is convinced he is the living embodiment of Jimi Hendrix, and he hires an ex-KGB officer to assist him. Meanwhile, there is a seemingly unrelated story about Taras, who is making a living as a taxi driver, transporting patients with kidney stones down a cobbled road. This is meant to be a social commentary about Ukrainian society and the impact of the Soviet era upon them. It looks at the power of music, cultural identity, and the longing for which we look back at the past. The Birthday Party by Lauren Movinga is translated by Daniel Levin Becker from the French. This is a story of a violent incident that occurs during a birthday party. It explores the incident from multiple points of view and is an examination of violence and the impact it has on individuals and relationships. This is a tense psychological novel that doesn't glorify this violent incident but looks at the impact it has on the characters around it. We Were Dreaming by Clemens Meyer is translated by Kathy Derbyshire from the German. It's set in Leipzig, Germany during the 90s. And that's formerly East Germany, and we're following a group of working class teenagers as they deal with the fall of communism and the rise of capitalism, the economic uncertainty that creates, as well as being teenagers and engaging in car theft, crime, violence, sex and drugs. Playa by Pamau Murugan, translated by Arundathan Vastuver from the Tamil, is the only book on the long list that I have already read. This is a portrait of caste and gender and love in rural India. A marriage between different castes is met with hostility. Suruja and Kumasaran are not welcome anywhere. Kumasaran's mother is particularly vocal of her dislike to Suruja, and the village in where they live becomes increasingly hostile against them. Stillborn by Guadalupe Nettle is translated by Rosalind Harvey from the Spanish. Alina and Laura are career-driven women in their 30s. Children are not part of the plan. Laura has undergone sterilization, while Alana is contemplating the idea of becoming a mother. Laura develops an attachment to a neighbour's son, while Alina thinks that she might be pregnant. This one might have a spoiler in the title, I think, but this sounds really good to me. A System So Magnificent It Is Blinding by Amanda Svensson, translated by Nicholas Smalley from the Swedish. On the day triplets are born, the father reveals he is having an affair. 25 years later, the triplets are in a doomsday cult trying to escape the colour blue and in a mysterious organisation. And I want to clarify that that's actually 3 separate things, although can we really be sure? Then the triplets get news that their father has gone missing. I really hope that he doesn't have blue eyes, otherwise they're never going to find him. I've got to say that if this book isn't absolutely terrible, then we need better blurb writers. This just sounds a bit like a mess to me, I'm sorry. Ninth Building by Zhou Xinghai, translated by Jeremy Tang from Chinese, is a series of vignettes based around the author's own experience during the Cultural Revolution. A book that is focused on the mundanity of life, but also on the humour and resilience of everyday people. My reaction to this is I think that this is a much better sounding long list than I was expecting. Stillborn sounds fantastic. That's probably my pick of the novels. Whale is probably the last novel on this long list that I want to read. I'd really say Pyre is a book that I really enjoyed reading. Very feminist. Anybody on the fence on this novel, I really recommend it. I think Standing Heavy and The Gospel of the New World are books that I really like the sound of too. They're probably my top 3. I really like the variety of voices in this list, but it's probably slightly too many from Europe. There's still a good variety at the same time though, because we have the Bulgarian author in there, and I think that we're all from different countries. There's only one LGBT novel, but that is one more than the Woman's Prize. So I guess kudos to the booker. There's only 5 women and 5 people of colour too. And I often feel like book prizes, they have this diversity quota and they only just fill it. They never overfill it. I think just if one year they smashed that minimum quota out of the water, then the next year when they only barely meet it, we can just say, well, that reflects the books of the year. But that it happens every year, it's not how statistics and books work. Back to the prize, I think that this is a very typical Booker International long list. Lots of books that I look at and sort of say, maybe I kind of want to listen to a review or two before I commit to reading it. There's a lot of unpredictability with books on this prize, and I think that's normal when you have books from so many different cultures. A Danish, an Argentinian, and a Korean thriller are all very different things usually, and they're all different to how somebody who is writing in English might go to write a thriller. You know, you have that extra level that you have to look at the books in, which is, I think, exciting. I feel optimistic with this long list, but also kind of like almost every book prize long list, the proof of this long list is going to be in the reading. So tell me what books you like the look of the most from this list. Subscribe to this channel. I'll be updating you on the Jalak Prize with their long list in approximately 24 hours time, so make sure you don't miss that. Bye bye.